Good afternoon and welcome to the TCPalm editorial board meeting to interview candidates in the Vero Beach election. I'm Larry Reisman, columnist and community editor. I'm joined by fellow editorial board members Adam Neal, Gil Smart, and Louise Philippine. Special thanks to our candidates today, Honey Minuse and Bob McCabe, for meeting with us and streamlining this process by completing questionnaires ahead of time. Board members have reviewed them. Questionnaires sent in can be found at tcpalm.com/elections, along with other stories, videos, and information about the November election. At the conclusion of this interview, editorial board members will discuss possibly writing an editorial to recommend a candidate in this race. I'll lead the questioning and open it up to other editorial board members at the end. Time permits, we might also ask questions posed by our social media audience. We've got several questions for you today, and we might end up having more of a conversation than just a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in 45 minutes or so. Because of our time constraints, we ask that you keep your answers concise. We'll start the questioning with Bob. First question would be, can you give one example of what you have done in the past year that proves you are doing more than just talk about helping the Indian River Lagoon?
Well, I guess I'd start off by just saying, active through last year on the Centennial Committee, working on the Centennial activities and being part of it with the Chamber and the parade and everything else, supporting John Michael Matthews on the activities and so forth. And then over and above that, it's just trying to keep everything together here with COVID-19 and keep the Chamber of Commerce here active and supporting the business community. And that's pretty much it. Can't hear you, Larry.
Larry, you're muted.
Sorry, there we go. I knew that was going to happen at some point. Honey, can you give us an example of maybe something you've done in the past year that proves you are doing more than just talk about helping the Indian River Lagoon?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. We can hear you, honey. Honey, can you hear us? Honey, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. You keep going in and out, and I don't understand why.
Okay. Did you hear my question about the Indian River Lagoon?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Can you give one example of what you have done in the past year that proves you are doing more than just talk about helping the Indian River Lagoon?
What I did was I passed my leadership role over in the IRNA, and over the past year, the IRNA has worked very well. Past couple of years, have worked very, very hard on the issues about the Lagoon Committee. As you probably know, my husband was very ill and passed away recently, so my personal time was limited. But I was fully in support of everything that they were doing, the Water and Lagoon Committee. And we were founding members of the Clean Water Coalition. And they've got like 800 partners now. It's really their work and reaching out into the community has really been spectacular. So they've had a lot of my support. Is that something else you wanted me to answer, or?
No, that's good. That's good. And then Bob has the response there.
No, I just was, you were breaking up at the end. I didn't understand the question was about the Indian River Lagoon specifically.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Let me just add then that, as part of as the treasurer of the Vero Beach Rotary Sunshine Club, we've done an awful lot there, and I've been very involved in that. We gave the $5,000 scholarship for environmental activity in Paul Drittenbass's name. We have a number of members that we're supporting financially and with volunteer help, if you would, working on testing the waters in the lagoon at a half a dozen different places, and also doing the testing of the water and the borings and the samples of the sludge on the bottom and stuff. So no, that's an area. The lagoon is one of my highest priorities. So I'm sorry I misunderstood your question.
No problem. We're going to go with no problem. We're going to go with Honey to start the next question. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Do you think a stormwater fee would be in the best interest of city property owners? What would you do to assess its fairness or viability?
Thank you, Larry. That's a really important question because there's a lot of confusion in the community about this. One, we know the waterway is impaired. The Federal Clean Water Act, we don't meet their standards. Then the second thing is we know what is causing this pollution. A lot of it is enteric bacteria. And this is, it upsets your stomach. You get diarrhea, you get a skin rash, you get eye irritation. We know where it comes from, a lot of stormwater runoff and also sewage. Now, your question is specifically to the stormwater runoff, so I will not talk about the sewage right now. As far as that runoff is concerned, I understand that part of the budget includes money to go to a consultant to look at establishing a stormwater utility. We need to see what the budget, we need to see what the consultant is coming back with. Some people say, oh, you're taxing me. Well, it's not a tax, it's a fee. If the stormwater runs off your property, your fee there is to be responsible and get it cleaned up. As I understood it originally, this fee to a homeowner would be somewhere around $5 a month, $60 a year. But that's not written in stone at this point. It's all going to be what happens with the the consultant study. It's a big concern that a lot of our churches have these parking lots where the water just runs off. And those churches have really been hurt by the pandemic. So we cannot impose, an unreasonable fee on them. That's just not right. There's ways that we can look at this in terms of grants. We can look at incentives. Right now, we have to wait for the consultant's report. We have to begin to understand the economic consequence to the people here. This is a huge issue and it's got to get resolved. We cannot continue to allow our lagoon to be as polluted as it is. It's hurting everybody.
Thanks, Honey. Bob, any thoughts on the stormwater fee, on the stormwater utility?
Absolutely. I look at that as an investment, and I agree with pretty much everything that Honey said. As you all know, I'm on the utility commission for the city, and we've discussed the stormwater several times. And I've taken the position that there's no advisory committee in the city that really has taken a look at stormwater. And I brought up several times that it would be my recommendation that the city council give that responsibility and oversight to the utility commission so we could take a hard look at it. There are a number of things that we can do, and one of my Rotary buddies, Robin Polinsky, has been around town, and most of you know her, and she's been pushing for rain gardens all over the place. And I'm trying to get my condo to take on a rain garden because we've got a large parking area and the roof and everything else, and we'd like to bring that down and put it through a sand filter essentially down to the aquifers and so forth. So we really need, I agree with Honey's priority that is something we really should take and address and make the investment in the stormwater activity and stuff, because that is a major source of the pollution.
Thanks, Bob. And we'll start with you on this next question. But what's the most important thing City Council can do to help improve its relationship with Indian River County?
Well, I think I'm counting on Laura Moss a lot to kind of help with that whole process, but I think some joint meetings would be very, very helpful. There's a number of areas where we could cooperate and jointly pursue, if you would, if we had that open line of communication, which is the best that I can tell over the last several years. There has not been a lot of that. And in fact, in order to get that Dodger Dodger Town golf thing, that had to be kind of taken on the side, if you would. And it would be nice if there were some meetings that the two city manager and county commission could take on and set an agenda up and see where we could go forward and cooperate more. Land use and the parks and preserving that for the the parks owned by the city, we could go a long way to getting some support and help and jointly planning how we're going to do that with a lot of the properties in the area, particularly the river and ocean frontages.
Thanks, Bob. Honey, would you like to talk about the relationship between the city and county?
Yeah, thank you. This is a perfect question for me. Thank you for asking it. I like to bring people together when they don't get along. Seriously, I've been doing it my entire life, and good things happen when that happens. And I'm just going to give you a little example. The Corrigan Ranch family, they were getting a bad name because of spreading the sewage sludge. And then we had developers who were not in agreement with the Corrigans, with what they were doing. So I brought two of them together, Brian Corrigan and Joe Paladin. And today they can talk very well. I brought them on the board of the IRNA, and they're both very much in support of my campaign. What's interesting is that I know that my relationships with them and my relationships with the individual commissioners will go far in establishing good relationships. The people that get appointed to boards, the people that get appointed to, to work with the county, the MPO, for instance, Citizens Advisory, all those things, very, very important. And I know that I can lead the way in helping people get along and work out differences. It's what I do. Thank you.
Thanks, honey. We'll start with you on this next question, which is, under what circumstances would you consider voting for an ordinance that would require the public to wear masks inside city facilities and inside businesses where public-facing employees also would have to wear them?
Larry, this is my background. Thank you. I'm a nurse. I keep my license current. I listened to Dr. Callahan when he presented to City Council. And with was people coming up talking about, I'm not going to wear a mask. It's violating my civil liberties. I had a hard time with that because I don't understand it, not with my science background. But what's important here is that the whole issue has been politicized. And from the federal level, from the first time, we became aware of this pandemic, this virus, whatever it was called in those early days. And we don't know the guidance right now. We do not have all the information we need about this particular virus. For myself personally, I will wear a mask. I'm protecting myself and I'm protecting other people in case I'm one of these people who are asymptomatic and capable of passing along the virus. I think what the city did, I'm very impressed with all the businesses that we have around town because there's a sign on their door, mask required. That, I think, is a very powerful statement, their responsibility to the community, to the people who shop in their stores. They're maintaining social distance. They've got sanitizers. They keep masks present, when people don't have them and maybe think I should have worn one, Now, when it comes to the city facilities, those masks, that's required. Those masks are all there. The sanitizers are all there. You go into City Hall and in the lobby, there is a table. And if you have to pick up something that's on the table, if you need to drop something off, there's a bin. They have their protocols for how many people can enter the city chambers, how many people can be in the lobby. We have that responsibility. The public does not agree not everyone in the public is going to agree that they are going to follow this policy. That's their regard. If I see someone not wearing a mask, I'm not going near them. You know, it's just that simple.
Thanks, honey. Bob, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I'd have to say I really feel very strongly that that the city and the county should mandate masks at all time in public places and where you can't socially distance. I first got introduced to the masks when I visited China in 1978, and I was just sort of as a U.S. guy, I just was sort of surprised to see so many people wearing masks, and it was explained to me that those people were wearing masks to protect me from them, because that's how a lot of colds, viruses spread. And they knew that back then. And they, of course, have a much larger population than we do and so forth. And then I've been kind of impressed with the county just south of us that they have mandated it. And my wife works at a retailer down in that county. And before they had mandated it, she had a lot of problems convincing people walking in that they should wear a mask. They would argue with her, and she was on the defensive, so to speak. Ever since the county down there required it, it's taken the burden off of her, and I would say it takes the burden off of all retailers, that they can just say, you need a mask because it's required. End of story. Put on a mask. And I agree with Honey. I mean, she knows a lot more about it with her profession and all, but you really wear a mask to protect the other people from you, and I really do strongly believe that it should be mandated throughout.
Thanks, Bob. We'll start with you on this question. Do you think the city should participate in efforts to ensure the playing fields just to the north of Vero Beach High School are preserved for recreation? Or would you be okay with them becoming apartments?
No, I feel very strongly about that those should be kept for recreation. I drive by there quite a lot in the evening and on the weekends, and there's very often a number of young kids, probably preteens, playing some kind of a sport, either flag football or whatever. And I really strongly believe that should be maintained as recreational property, as I believe it's in the deed restrictions right now. And let me just go one step further. I would like to see the city council take on the issue of zoning and land use throughout the area totally and completely. So many of the issues, contentious issues around here in the last several years have been involving zoning and land use. And I'd like to see those kind of taken care of and really strongly addressed. To agree to permit a restaurant to be put across from Bobby's with the incredibly terrible parking down there seems like a lapse in the environmental, or economic, the zoning laws. And the plot that you just talked about was also one that I think. And Azalea Lane was an issue that really came down to zoning, and I think we need to protect that. We have a limited amount of space here of publicly owned properties, and as I said, Lagoon and Riverside, and I'd like to see us really address that and put some definitive ordinance around it, so we don't get into these issues where people are trying to, in my view, skirt the public interest.
Thanks, Bob. Honey?
Yeah, hi. I think the apartments that were proposed for that area across from the high school are very inappropriate. It's not a transitional use at all. It needs to stay in recreation, period. And in response to what Bob was just talking about, some years back, we did a vision plan, which was an extraordinary effort in this community. The participation, the company that was hired, I think they were from Kansas City, they went to everybody. There were meetings, there were interviews, there were forums, I mean, on and on and on. And in the end, there was a vision for Vero Beach, how we would be the crown jewel of the Treasure Coast, how we would preserve our character as we grow. Now, I mentioned that in the context of our comprehensive land use plan. We were seriously out of compliance updating that. And under Tim McGarry, we did update that. And that took a couple of years to get it done. And frequently our backup material was the Vero Beach Vision Plan saw such and such and such. And that's what we did. We followed the vision plan, and that's where our zoning is today. We have, and so anyway, that's where we are. The contentious issues come in when someone wants to change what the land use is. And I really can't talk about it, but Bob mentioned Azalea, and that's under a citizen lawsuit right now. They're not happy with what the people want to do on Azalea. And P&Z tabled that, so we had nothing further to do on that. But when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation, I'm really a big fan of that. And we recently, the old Press Journal building on US 1, that has a new proposed use, and we added it to our comp plan to change it as a permitted use. And on US 1 in that area, it's called a commercial and a corridor. And what we did was we added museum as a permitted use there, and this is what's being proposed. And so when we change land use and what's permitted where, those are acts that we have to take care of, with planning and zoning. We're a statutory regulatory agency according to the state. So I'm really pleased when I see those kinds of things happening on US 1, because people tend not to travel through US 1 from one end to the other. It's a fast corridor. People don't do that. So what they do is they come up residential streets to get to the street they need to get to their business on. And I don't like, people going through neighborhoods for that purpose. So I'm very much in changing land use when it benefits the public. And that's why I say this innovation and entrepreneurship really attracts my creative thinking. So yeah, the vision plan helped the comprehensive land use plan. We're in compliance, and it guides what we do.
Thanks, honey. We'll give you we'll start you off with the next question, which is somewhat related. What should Vero Beach's strategy be for dealing with parking in its Oceanside business district?
Boy, this has been going on and on and on, back and forth. One thing that I see has been very satisfactory over the years now, admittedly this is pre-pandemic. Businesses have gotten together with each other and they have shared business parking, like for employees. That helped for a while. I frequently drove up and down, the business districts there, the shopping areas, Ocean, Cardinal, all that, Beachland. And what I was really witnessing was that people don't want to walk. They want to park as close to the business as they can. This has been studied and studied and studied because it is a big problem. We had the employees parking down by the bridge. That didn't work out. Then, we had the police enforcement with, limited parking time. And that's not being enforced now because of the pandemic. But as soon as we come back to, busy season, we're going to be faced with these same problems. We obviously need a solution. We have looked on and on, for solutions. It's not there right now. But any further development is going to really impact that. And that's got to be looked at carefully. And I'll be honest with you, I am not a fan of parking meters. My husband and I traveled around Florida a lot. And every time we came to a city with a parking meter, we found the people were less than friendly. We found that they had problems. This was money that was being collected. And it just did not give a very good impression of the city. So we can build parking areas. We can look at, we've got to look at this and come up with solutions. It's a big problem. Parking garages, maybe with some, oh God, I hate to mention this, but we don't know what businesses are going to survive or not. And so that will all come into play when we start looking at the parking issue again. It's a big deal. I care very much about that issue. Thank you.
Thanks, honey. Bob?
I would just expand your question to include Main Street, where my chamber is. In the evenings, that's an incredibly difficult place for parking as well. And I totally agree with Honey. I am absolutely opposed to parking meters. If I'd want to live with parking meters, I would have stayed in Boston or New York or Detroit. I think that's one of the things that makes Vero so special is that we don't have parking meters. And I want to go back to the zoning laws again, the zoning codes. How in God's name could the existing zoning codes allow a restaurant to be put across from Bobby's on Ocean Drive? If that's what the zoning is, then we really are part of the problem in creating more parking problems. That said, I would also believe that we've paid enough to consultants on all of this. We've studied it to death from a consultant standpoint. I think it's time to try to do some town hall meetings or something like that, or discussions with the business owners and let them become part of the solution as well. Honey mentions entrepreneurs. Well, if in a business environment, if you get a problem, you try to address it, you try to look at various pros and cons and so forth. And again, I live on Ocean Drive, and that is a real problem there, and I really would like to see it addressed. And I think City Council directly, not through a consultant, should start to get more involved in this and listening to people.
Thanks, Bob. I will go to you on the next question, Bob. What do you see for the future of the Three Corners property? What's a realistic time frame for improvements on the power plant site?
Well, that of course is as contentious an issue as any about town and so forth. The land use plan and so forth, I think enters into this an awful lot. And I guess I would like to see some scenarios that take a look at keeping it much more for the public use. As I stumped around that area on the last couple of campaigns and so forth, down in Fairlane Manor and at the condos to the north side, it was to a person we were told that they did not want in their neighborhood more living units, more townhouses, more little cottages or anything else. And that's where the plan is devolved to at this point. So I really think that's a mistake. Whether we should look at the other activities, other possibilities, and so forth. I'm quite impressed with the youth sailing, what they've come up with as a plan, and it's for public use. It retains that and so forth. So I think that's really good. Regarding the time frame, I'm just sort of frustrated in that we went about a year with the consultant not understanding what the budget was and the city not declaring and making clear a budget. So in my view, we've lost a number of months as the different groups were talking past one another. And I guess I'd like to see, and if possible, bring some more clear direction and leadership, if you would, in that, so that we can move forward with it. That land is just absolutely fantastic. We're not going to get more property on the river, and we've got that across the river and Riverside Park and all. And I would just like to see some real heavy thought as to what we can do to make it more of use for the public, if you would. Now, I understand there are real budgetary issues in there, but the parks, I've never thought of parks as a money-making process. I worked for 10 years just looking down on Central Park South, and I never heard anybody in New York talk about we should sell off part of that park or we should try to make money on that park. So I think our parks and recreational facilities should be maintained at general revenues, if you would, and not try to collect other than fees for specific sports and that kind of activities like at Leisure Square.
Thanks, Bob. Honey, what are your thoughts on the Three Corners?
This is a big deal. Thanks, Larry. The consultant, his conclusion really ended very poorly. There was an original plan, the standing ovation. Then he came back, well, with the post-pandemic, and then I think we're dealing with 5 scenarios now. It just kept changing, and to deal with 5 scenarios not right now is just very poor. Number one, I don't think the city should regulate who has the ability to live on the water. So putting living units there, I don't think is a very good idea. Number two, we don't need another arts village. We've got our beautiful area where Edgewood has been revitalized. And remember, it used to be crime city right over there, prostitution, the police were there all the time. And now having this arts village, it's beautiful. It really is. We don't need to put up competition for them over on the three corners. I'm very glad that he came back with a new Andres came back with a new perspective post-pandemic, because it's making us think we've got to give a fresh look to all of this. I was like Bob, I was very impressed with the Youth Sailing Foundation presentation to City Council, because they spoke to all the nonprofits in this community, and boy, do we have them. Having them involved, maybe Audubon having a butterfly garden. I have a lot of people telling me I want this more family oriented. I want an area for little kids. It's got to be safe though. You can't let them fall into the water. I'm hearing a lot of things that it's got to serve our community better. But I think one of the biggest things we have to do is understand that this has to be fiscally responsible. Everyone talks about, oh, we got 21 millions left from the sale. Well, what's that old expression? The easiest thing to spend is somebody else's money? No, that 21 stays where it is. We have to look at this property and see that it's developed in such a way that it's a benefit to the people here, and it's not going to be a drag on our financial responsibility in the city. We can, outside of looking at our nonprofits around here, we can look for grants, like with FIND, the Florida Inland Navigation District. Maybe they want to get involved. Because that's waterfront property there. I think we can collaborate with a lot of people. The Clean Water Coalition, they have over 800 partners. They care very much about what's going on in the lagoon. They could conceivably do something, to help along this line. They're a 501c3. So at the top of this list is to have it financially responsible, a benefit to the people who live here, because the people here own that land at this point. Council is only going to make decisions. Council will tell the city manager what's to be expected and proceed from there.
Thanks, honey. Bob, go ahead, Bob.
That we had Youth Sailing come over and give a presentation to our Rotary Sunshine breakfast meeting 2 weeks ago, and the group was quite impressed. And I think they indicated Kiwanis had agreed to fund some of the activities that could go on down there, which I think is fantastic. And I would only say that my Sunrise Rotary is giving it serious consideration to support those activities as well. Thank you, honey.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay, we'll go to Honey on this next question, which is, given that Indian River County is supposed to grow by 50,000 people through 2045, that's only 25 years from now, would you be in favor of narrowing the lanes of traffic along State Road 60 between 20th Avenue and Indian River Boulevard, also known as the Twin Pairs?
Okay, Larry, some of what you said was, I couldn't hear it all. Something about working with the county on State Road 60?
No, it was, the question was, would you be willing to narrow the roadway, the State Road 60, the Twin Pairs roadway? I think the beginning of the question was, Indian River County is supposed to have 50,000 more people over the next 25 years. So, but then the question was, do we narrow State Road 60?
As it goes through downtown, we made those changes a while ago. I think people are used to driving the way they're driving. They're relatively safe right now. I don't see any change is really necessary as it's going through town. When you come out on out by going west by St. Helens, I drive that frequently. I don't see a problem there.
Okay, thanks, Bob. You talked about the need.
Yeah, my office is right on 60 on the eastbound side of the Twin Pairs, and I agree with Honey. I'm not sure there's any advantage in changing the way it is today. I wouldn't, unless somebody came along with some kind of a super plan or something like that. I'd like to leave well enough alone.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Adam, Gil, Louise, any questions?
Yeah, I can jump in with a question, Larry.
Okay.
So, and I think this probably goes to Bob first, right? So the question is, many Florida cities have focused on greener futures. They've done everything from investing in renewable energy sources, such as solar, to decreasing emissions with hybrid and electric fleets. In fact, Stewart just this week revealed a 43-page draft sustainability plan. Vero seems behind on this topic. If elected, what, if anything, will you do to help the city with green initiatives?
Well, again, just starting down by the lagoon and so forth, a lot of the green space along there could be used to plant things to foliage to protect the lagoon and also increase the level of oxygen and everything else in the air. Now, green. I'm not that familiar with what they've done down south of here and so forth. I think there's an awful lot of activities. I'm very impressed with what FP&L is doing in terms of solar generation, and I think a lot of those are at the state and national level to encourage those in facilities and so forth. I don't know what the actual footprint of the city and the city properties is in terms of carbon and so forth. So that's something that possibly the Utilities Commission could take a hard look at. These are clearly things that are very, very important to the long term. Everything from wind farms off the coasts, if you would. And those to me are very, very important. And I don't know if the city's ever looked at natural gas vehicles as to try to improve that footprint, if you would. But as those initiatives come along and we take a hard look at them, I'd be very much in favor of doing whatever we could within the budget to implement those plans.
Thanks, Honey.
Yeah, I missed the first part of that question. Was it all about a carbon footprint? And could you please repeat that?
Sure. It was just talking about how many Florida cities have focused and prioritized a greener future. And the question was, Vero seems to be behind this topic. So if elected, what, if anything, would you do to help the city with any green initiatives?
I think our parks are very primary to what you're talking about. I'm very impressed with what the city has recently done. They're going to be take the lateral canal over by St. Helens on 20th. They're going to take that and bring it into the reuse condition and clean it to a higher standard so that when it's going through the pipeline over to irrigate on the barrier island, that will be a greener, a much cleaner, greener standard. So improving our water is very important. Of course, the water treatment plants are being moved over to the airport. That is going to be a big deal because we get rid of the threat over here on the lagoon. I'm very much in favor of all these green initiatives, especially because if we have parks, families enjoy the parks, especially now. I'm being told by people that they're using the parks much more than they did because of all this isolation. They're getting their kids out, they're playing. It's a social environment such as they never thought that they would use before. So there's a lot of benefit to this. Something very interesting, it was some years back, Richard Bialowski was trying to buy the property where Christ Church is now, across from Hampton Inn on the eastbound Route 60. And he, what he had proposed was an interesting mixed use from the road going south then the back of that, his plan was a stormwater and bring it to this pond, and it would be cleansed naturally with the greenery, with the green that was there. And so the water that went down into our aquifers, which eventually would end up in the lagoon, was clean water. But unfortunately, he never got to buy the property. The church did. The church developed it, and they do have a a pond in the back of it. But those are the kinds of things that we're not going to see wind farms here in the near future. Let's put it that way. And solar, where a lot of people are putting solar on their roofs now. But that's an FPL incentive. That's not for the city. A lot of people are hooking up with the natural gas line that's coming here too. So, those are individual choices. And of course, we leave that to people to make their own decisions. But when it comes to the kind of things that we can do on city council to encourage all these green space, need to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, honey. We're going to give you an opportunity now. Any other questions from editorial board members? Louise, Gil, Adam? Okay. We're almost at 45 minutes. We've got a few minutes left. Honey, I'll give you the first crack at this. Is there anything that we missed today that you'd like to bring up? Any summary statement? Anything you'd kind of like to tell us?
I'm very fond of my city. The people that work for our city, who have worked here for a long time, they never seem to get the appreciation that they should have. I personally feel it when I see city workers. I say, thank you. You're doing wonderful work. You're maintaining our community as the crown jewel. Those things are very important. The work that our city workers do for us. And I want to continue, supporting them. As I say, I love my city, and I really, I can't think of anything really that you haven't covered. I go back a lot to the vision plan because that was a huge community effort involving everybody. I'd like to see somehow a steering committee embrace in the development of the three corners. I don't criticize what happened before. I just think we have an opportunity now for more community engagement. And with this pandemic and the social isolation and everything going on, teleconferencing, we're going to have to assure that transparency and that communication. That's a big deal. And anyway, I thank you for this opportunity to discuss these issues. I really have quite a passion about them. And as I say, I've got the time in my life now to give to my city, and I certainly have the commitment to do it. I hope you look upon my comments favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. Bob, any final comments, any summary, anything we missed that you'd like?
I don't think we missed too much. It's been very, very good. I just wanted to say that, when I first invested in the condo down here 20 years ago and then moved here in 2012, I've been very, very impressed in the Vero community, and it really is special. And I want to keep it special and so forth. The other thing is that, I have a lot of background, a lot of experience, and lived in the world. I've tried to give back to the local community, be it Boston or Flint or Detroit or Ohio. And I think to be a good citizen, you have to offer your services, whatever you can bring to the table to try to improve the community. After all, we are a part of the community. And that was always fostered company for many years. And I kind of had to fight the battle to be involved in some of the local activities, be it a chamber, be it a city a committee of some nature and so forth. But I think it's very important. And I think that experience that I have, I'd like to offer that to the city and see what we can do to kind of keep things on track. I'm very impressed actually with the more recent councils. They've been much more diplomatic with one another and discuss the issues in a very calm manner and so forth. And I just think that going forward, we've got a lot of issues we need to address. and I'd like to participate that and add as much positivity and teamwork as we possibly can to address a lot of these issues that are really involving the community and a very strong community interest. And I expect a very large turnout at this year's election for obvious reasons. And I just wish us all luck to do the best thing we can for the city. And thank you for the opportunity as well.
Thank you, Honey Minuse and Bob McCabe, for joining us today as the TCPalm Press Journal editorial board did some interviews with regard to the Vero Beach City election. We've got other interviews that we've been working on. You can find them all on TCPalm. For more information on the November election, you can go to tcpalm.com/elections. And again, thank you for both of you for coming out. And on behalf of the editorial board, we really appreciate it. And good luck in the November election. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.